The Geek Way, the radical mindset that drives extraordinary results. Written by Andrew McAfee. Read by Andrew McAfee and Sean Patrick Hopkins. Forward by Reid Hoffman. I strongly believe that great technology entrepreneurs aren't just technology geeks, but they're also business geeks. In the words of Apple's famous advertising campaign, they find ways to think different. They apply their insatiable curiosity and love of experimentation to the challenge of building better products and companies. But while most people recognize that we now live in a veritable age of geekdom, no one seems to have analyzed and explained the core principles and mechanisms of business geekery. Even my own books, such as The Alliance and Blitzscaling, which definitely geek out on people management and building multi-billion-dollar businesses respectively, don't examine the meta-question of why the geeks have inherited the earth. With his new book, The Geek Way, Andrew McAfee, who is himself an alpha geek of the business variety, tackles the central questions of what geeks are, what they believe, and why they have been so successful in the past few decades. By combining management theory, competitive strategy, the science of evolution, psychology, military history, and cultural anthropology, he has produced a remarkable work of synthesis that finally explains, with a single unified theory, which he dubs the Geek Way, the reasons why the tech startup approach has taken over so much of the world. While many of his conclusions come from an in-depth analysis of successful tech startups and tech giants such as Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and Netflix, he also draws lessons from grade school children, military planners, and chimpanzees, and explains why seemingly human frailties like overconfidence, prestige, and gossip are actually essential to successful organizations. Along the way, you'll learn why so many organizations descend into bureaucracy and unethical behavior, and the 4 key principles you can use to build a culture that combats these value-destroying villains. I predict that this book's greatest lasting contribution will be the way in which it presents a clear, detailed, evidence-based explanation of how culture works and why it is so important. Never again will you look at culture as a fuzzy, hand-waving management buzzword. The Geek Way is a must-read for any leader who has wondered how to build a 21st century organization. For those outside the technology industry, McAfee demystifies key concepts such as A/B testing and agile software development. But even technology veterans can benefit from understanding how so many industry best practices and articles of faith stem from underlying elements of human nature that evolved over millions of years. I consider myself a long-time student and chronicler of Silicon Valley, and I still took copious notes on the many new things I learned from reading this book. I think you'll have the same experience.
To my brother David McAfee, who has always been there. One will weave the canvas, another will fell a tree by the light of his axe. Yet another will forge nails, and there will be others who observe the stars to learn how to navigate, and yet all will be as one. Building a boat isn't about weaving canvas, forging nails, or reading the sky. It's about giving a shared taste for the sea, by the light of which you will see nothing contradictory, but rather a community of love. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. Introduction. The Misunderstood Revolution. Here is an essential principle of education. To teach details is to bring confusion. To establish the relationship between things is to bring knowledge. Maria Montessori. I'll never forget cross-examining my mother about punch cards. It happened in 1978 when I was 11 years old. My parents had divorced the previous year, and my mom had gone back to school to get an accounting degree so she could get a job. One of her required courses was computer programming, which at the time was still often done with punch cards. These were stiff paper cards, about 30% bigger than a dollar bill, which contained both the instructions and the data required to run a program. Many computers of that era didn't have disk drives or other storage media because they were so expensive, so everything had to be stored on the cards. One night my mom brought home her homework, a box full of punch cards. I thought they were fascinating and asked what they were for. "They're for programming a computer," she said, while, I imagine, bracing herself for what she knew was coming. "What's a computer?" "It's a machine that does what you tell it."
Sample complete. Ready to continue?